Oprah Winfrey paid a fortune to Apple TV Plus chiefs to buy back the rights to a documentary about her life. Apple announced with great fanfare in 2021 that Oscar-winning filmmaker Kevin McDonald would be directing the documentary about the talk show host turned media mogul. However, sources say that McDonald, who teamed up with Winfrey's longtime producer Lisa Esprimer on the project, had clashed with the billionaire after he finished the film, and it's been on hold ever since. Kevin made the film, but Oprah didn't like it and he refused to change it, and Oprah has paid back her fee to Apple, at least according to a well-placed Hollywood source. While industry sources speculate Oprah would have to pay millions to get the rights to the documentary back, a source in the know denies that it was 7 figures. But here's the thing. Oprah's documentary is not the first high-profile release to be put on ice. Netflix's years in the making Prince documentary is being held hostage due to objections from the 7-time Grammy winner's estate. Looks like documentary making isn't exactly profitable these days. Oprah's been rightfully called out for using weight loss medication, despite being a longtime ambassador for Weight Watchers. The famous public figure has confirmed she uses an unnamed substance to help control her weight. This was in a revealing chat, and she said her new slim figure is thanks to the medication and a healthier lifestyle overall. She says, "I now use it as I feel I need it, as a tool to manage not yo-yoing." She added that the fact that there's a medically approved prescription for managing weight and staying healthier in my lifetime feels like a relief, like redemption, like a gift, not something to hide behind and once again be ridiculed for. In a conversation with People magazine, she concluded that she's absolutely done with the shaming from other people and particularly herself. But here's the thing. A lot of folks and a lot of fans feel like the billionaire philanthropist is being hypocritical. Once again, given she is a proud spokesperson for Weight Watchers. She's worked with that company since 2017. One social media user wrote, "What I don't like about Oprah is she is clearly off doing Ozempic, but yet she's still pushing Weight Watchers." And another was like, "Done with shaming but okay with lying." And a lot of folks called her out, and rightfully so, for letting them believe she did it the old-fashioned way. And they're like, "Why'd you lie?" Well, I can tell you why. The legend of Oprah Winfrey as an extremely poor girl growing up without a father to a too young mother who, as Oprah claimed, carried with shame during pregnancy and then neglected her, spread when Oprah began giving interviews in Chicago. She said, "Oh, how they harmed me. I wanted to be white because I never saw white people being hurt." That's what she said, folks. She remembered her early years as being lonely. She didn't play with anybody except for, I think, the pigs she rode without a saddle in her grandmother's garden. She said, "The only thing I could talk to was the animals in the farmyard. I read them Bible stories. And apparently the years spent with a mother on welfare were even worse. We were so poor we couldn't afford a dog or a cat, so I had 2 cockroaches as pets. I put them in a jar and named them Melinda and Sandy." She entertained her audiences with stories about fetching water from the well, milking cows, emptying the drinking pot, all pretty much a fairy tale. She told her stories about her grandmother who swung a switch, her grandfather who was mean with a stick, the people who raised her for the earliest years of her life. She said, "Oh, how they harmed me." And she mentioned like her grandmother would harm her all the time. It's an integral part of Southern tradition, the way folks raise people. You spill something, game over. You tell a story, game over. She said, "Oh, it could happen all day. Nobody would ever get tired." But here's the thing. Not everybody in Oprah's family agrees with this desperate upbringing. Her mother, Vernita Lee, when asked about her daughter's habits of self-dramatization, said, "Oprah's a bit of a cold smoker." Now, if you're confused there, don't worry. Oprah's sister later dispelled the myth of immense poverty. She said, "Well, of course we weren't rich," but Patricia said that Oprah exaggerated how bad it was for them. She guesses the viewers would love her, the audience would grow if she told these stories. Cockroaches were never her pet. She always had a dog. She had a white cat. She had an eel in a tank. She had a parakeet named Bo Peep that was, learning to speak. Where Oprah got that nonsense about growing up in filth and roaches, I have no idea, according to cousin Catherine Carr Esters. She said, "I've confronted her and asked, 'Why do you tell such lies?' And Oprah said, 'That's what people want to hear. The truth is boring.'" So on air, Oprah's portrayed as this wholesome, sweet lady, this big philanthropist. But according to her stepmother, there is an unknown side to Oprah. This was a side hidden from fans for years. According to Barbara, Oprah is one of the most controlling people you will ever meet. According to Barbara, Oprah would not allow the family to stay at her house when they tried to visit, forcing them instead to stay in hotels, paying out of pocket. Barbara also said that Oprah was quick to anger when it came to her staff, with quite a few people being fired left and right over the years. But that's not all. Despite being a billionaire, Barbara, by the way, allows Oprah to stay at her home for visits, and Oprah's not a fan. So confidentiality agreements are not uncommon in the world of Hollywood. Look, Marvel will literally have somebody take you out if even a single line leaks to the public. Well, in Kitty Kelly's tell-all book about Oprah, the author mentions the confidentiality agreements that coworkers and guest stars had to sign to be on any of her shows. So this was like everybody. We're talking like Tom Cruise to the person who made Tom's Muffin. Over 500 staff members over time were forced to sign this document, if not more. One former employee, Elizabeth Cody, tried to write a book about her time working for Oprah. But then again, that NDA, because, well, you sign that agreement, game over. The NDAs were not meant to be a way to keep just show secrets safe, but any and all of Oprah's secrets as well. According to Elizabeth, the documents were signed by almost everybody in Oprah's life. So Elizabeth felt she was kind of being muzzled afterwards. And if you think this didn't extend to the guests, don't worry. In 2010, Unicus Performance Training filed a lawsuit against Oprah and her company Harpo, claiming they never got paid for a workout program they were developing, because Harpo fired them for violating the terms of their confidentiality agreement. How so? Well, UPT sent out a mass email promoting their upcoming appearance on Oprah's radio show, and according to the NDA, they weren't allowed to use Harpo's name, Oprah.com's name, or Oprah's name for advertising or promotional use. But they were just promoting their appearance on her show. They weren't saying anything like, hush hush. So Oprah has owned over 21 dogs throughout her lifetime, if we're not even counting the ones she allegedly had in her upbringing. But here's the thing, being a dog mom hasn't come without its challenges. At one point, two of the mogul's dogs were at odds for over a decade, leaving her frustrated as she tried to maintain peace in the house. She even created barriers to keep them from being in the same room. Thankfully, her relief came when she met Cesar Millan, the renowned dog whisperer who transformed the household dynamic. He explained that her house was like maximum security because she had to separate the Cocker Spaniel, Sophie, and the Golden Retriever, Luke. Apparently, this was going on for 11 years. How did this happen? Well, Oprah's bond with Sophie was particularly deep. In 2011, she shared that one of her greatest teachers was Sophie. Sophie lived for 13 years and came to work with Oprah every day. She was there for every show, she was backstage at the Oscars and the Emmys. She even waited in the car if Oprah went to an appointment. She was so attached to Oprah that if Oprah even left her in a hotel room for 5 minutes, Sophie would start howling. She had separation anxiety, and it was really bad. There were so many times that Oprah thought she was going to get kicked out of hotels. Oprah has long been claimed to be a great charitable woman, and recently she's been, an outspoken advocate for the island of Maui. But here's the thing, when everything happened last year, she started a fund. She didn't really donate a lot of money. She was asking for you to give her your money to help everybody else. And a lot of folks were like, hey, why aren't people speaking up about this? Why aren't we calling Oprah out for being a phony? Folks were like, well, she's only really doing this because that's where her vacation home is. She doesn't actually care. And a lot of folks found that really shallow and really awful.
Mark Wahlberg is making headlines for David Beckham's lawsuit against him, but that is just one more controversy on a long list that often gets overlooked. His first noted transgression happened almost 4 decades ago in 1986. Wahlberg and his friend group at the time had a civil rights injunction issued for them because they were throwing things and yelling racially insensitive words. Then 2 years after that, he proved he could be worse, acting in an aggressive manner towards 2 Vietnamese men. He was sentenced to 2 years for that one, served 45 days. 1992 was the incident with his neighbor. Then there was the pay scandal from 2018 when he worked on All the Money in the World. He got $1.5 million for the reshoots. Michelle Williams got $1,000. He did donate his portion after the backlash, which that was good. Still, his track record is an interesting one, and these are just the things we know about. Wahlberg has said, though, that he has spent the better part of his life trying to make up for his past wrongs. Most of Hollywood seems to want us to believe that paparazzi are out, just roaming like vultures, just waiting to snap the perfect photo, and that's not always true. Sometimes paparazzi might spontaneously be at a location if it's a known celebrity hub, or a hotel before a premiere, or a popular celebrity's house, or even a star-studded town like LA. But those random shots of people leaving the grocery store in the middle of nowhere, or some random coffee shop, those might not be as authentic as we are made to believe. Turns out paparazzi are sometimes called to a location, whether that's just to get some pictures of new talent out there or to help set up a PR stunt. A paparazzi that regularly works with the Kardashians shared that Kim Kardashian sometimes texts him her location, even flying her favorite paparazzi around the world with her to get those perfect, glamorous, candid shots. Sure, some pictures of celebrities are definitely the real caught off guard thing, but definitely not all of them. Rebecca Ferguson may have let us know about a particularly nasty encounter with a castmate, but she is keeping their name out of the headlines, for now at least. Ferguson is in the film Dune 2, which just had its press tour. It was during an interview with Josh Smith on the tour that Ferguson revealed the shocking info that she was once screamed at on set by a co-star. The case was taken up by internet sleuths in no time, theories all over social media about who it could have been. Ferguson has chosen to keep that part to herself. She has since expressed that she shared the story mainly because it was a turning point in her perception of herself and her career, and wanted to share the story because it fit the question Smith had asked her. Still, people are angry about the way she was treated and what was said to her. The unnamed co-star allegedly yelled, "You call yourself an actor? This is what I have to work with? What is this?" Ferguson shared that though it did hurt in the moment, it was the first time she stood up for herself on a set, telling the person to get off her set and F off, and that she never wants to see them again. Since we don't know who she is talking about, we don't know if she never saw them again, but hopefully not. For the longest time, Britney Spears was hiding some pretty dark secrets, but not because she wanted to. During the pandemic, people began noticing something was up with Spears, and soon people started to piece together the restrictive nature of her conservatorship. The news of how her father basically, allegedly controlled every aspect of the singer's life rocked the internet and led to a large social media outcry to free Britney. The star allegedly had little control over her finances, family life, and just her life in general. Her book, The Woman in Me, dropped in 2023 and revealed more interesting stories and secrets about the singer's life. One particular story about how she got pregnant took the internet by storm. While Britney and Justin Timberlake were dating, she got pregnant with his baby, but felt she couldn't keep the child even though she really wanted to. Justin Timberlake just didn't feel ready to be a father, so Britney felt forced to end the pregnancy. In her book she wrote, "If it had been left up to me alone, I never would have done it, and to this day, it's one of the most agonizing things I have ever experienced in my life." The book highlighted that being the most popular person in the world is not everything it's cracked up to be, and Britney's story showcased just how controlled Hollywood stars might be. Madonna is a bit of a wild child now and no stranger to controversy, but she hasn't always had the easiest time. She's got a pretty rough history with ex-husband Sean Penn. Penn was accused of acting rudely towards the Material Girl singer during their marriage. The breaking point in the marriage happened when Penn allegedly tied Madonna to a chair and left. She sat for 9 hours. She did escape and managed to get to a police station to file a complaint. Penn was charged, but Madonna ended up pulling the complaints and instead filed for divorce, leaving the marriage with "May God bless and keep him, but far, far from me." Sean Penn's career may have suffered briefly, but he's still very active in Hollywood and has been in multiple big films over the years since the 1988 incident. Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis tried to keep this secret as hidden as possible, much to the disappointment of their fans and the internet in general. Kutcher and Kunis starred on That 70s Show alongside Danny Masterson. Masterson was found guilty of acting inappropriately towards 2 women and will spend 30 years behind bars for his behavior. Great news to the average person. It was great news that he was even going to trial. It seems the news wasn't so awesome to Kutcher and Kunis, as the pair penned letters to the judge handling Masterson's case asking for leniency. The internet did not appreciate their efforts and was quick to put the actors in their place, so much so that they posted an apology video to Instagram. Alfred Hitchcock's legacy has shielded some of his more deranged actions from the public's consciousness in the decades since he has passed. Many hear the name and recall amazing films expertly put together, but the expert has truly insane ways of achieving what we get to see on the screen. It might surprise you, or not surprise you at all, to learn that the methods of creating his horror movie The Birds were just as horrific as the movie. Lead actress of the film, Tippi Hedren, shares a particularly harrowing story in her 2016 memoir Tippi. She writes about the day they were going to film the famous scene where her character is attacked by birds in the bedroom. Tippi shares that she was told the birds in the scene were going to be robotic. However, on the day of the shoot, she found out from the assistant director that the mechanical birds weren't working, so they had no choice but to use live birds. No choice? Really? Okay. This led to a brutal experience for the actress. 5 days of filming the scene where live birds were thrown at her. Tippy describes the ordeal as brutal and ugly and relentless, but it was going to get worse. On the final day, Hitchcock decided to tie the birds to her while she was laying on the floor, and once action was called, the birds started to peck. It wasn't until one nearly got her eye that she stopped it all and was doing so bad she had to go on a doctor's mandated week of rest. Judy Garland is forever immortalized as the cheerful, sweet Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, but the Ruby Red legacy is hiding a lot more heartache than anyone could have guessed. She didn't have an amazing relationship with her mother, and her schedule while working for MGM was always packed. Days started early and sometimes ended in the early morning of the next day. This led to Garland needing some outside assistance to keep on her feet, the kind of thing that would plague her for the rest of her life. The set of The Wizard of Oz looked magical, but it was no place for a girl. She was placed on a strict diet so she could look as small as possible so she would appear as young as possible. She endured poor treatment from studio execs and other actors throughout her career before passing away in 1969. Another example of a young star that was kept under close watch is Jeanette McCurdy. She is also another example of a celeb who used a book to discuss her complicated feelings surrounding growing up famous. McCurdy's book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, does contain plenty of stories about her mom's treatment of her, which we will get to, but it also contained insider info on the experience of child stars. McCurdy writing that she felt her whole childhood and adolescence was very exploited. She shared that even years later, after being kind of out of the spotlight, she still feels the effects. She writes, "It still gives my nervous system a reaction to say it. There were cases where people had the best intentions and maybe didn't know what they were doing, and also cases where they knew exactly what they were doing. Most people hope that if a child is going to be entering the workforce of Hollywood so young, they would have a good parent at their side. Unfortunately, Jeanette's book highlights that this isn't always the case. She shares stories of times she wished her mom had stepped up more, like when she had felt pressured into doing a bikini photo shoot when she wasn't yet 18. McCurdy continues to share situations that young stars might be put in by adults, including one in which McCurdy was offered an adult drink by someone she referred to as the creator. Jeanette shared that whenever she would bring up how she felt uncomfortable with something, she would receive the comment, "Everyone wants what you have." The way young stars are treated in Hollywood is a profoundly uncomfortable topic, one that was just touched on in the landmark Quiet on Set documentary about Nickelodeon. One of the major stories that was told was that of Drake Bell. Without going into too many details, Bell was one of the biggest young actors Nickelodeon had. He was in a few different shows, mainly Drake and Josh, but would do guest appearances on other shows. He was a big deal. He was known for his outgoing, bright personality. So it came as a big shock to the world to hear about everything he was dealing with behind closed doors in the documentary. A dialect coach that worked with Nickelodeon had been acting inappropriately towards the young actor for an extended period of time. The coach did go to court, but in the opinion of many, did not get an adequate punishment for his behavior. Bell had kept the secret to himself for many years, but has now felt okay enough to share his experience.
Rose McGowan, who is best known for her role on the WB drama Charmed, has claimed that Harvey W. had her blacklisted from Hollywood. In the late 90s, he reportedly took advantage of her, and although she didn't press charges, she did reach a settlement with him for $100 grand. Since then, she's found herself on the Hollywood blacklist. Filmmaker Robert Rodriguez actually confirmed this because he tried to get her off of that by offering her a part in his movie Grindhouse, which he was working on for a division of Harvey's company. Even though the film received great reviews from critics, it ended up tanking at the box office after Harvey had it buried. In tweets from 2017, Rose said she had sold a script to Amazon, which was in development, but then she learned a Harvey bailout was in the works, so she forcefully begged the studio head to do the right thing. She was ignored, deal was done, Amazon won a dirty Oscar. She said that she called her attorney, she said she wanted to get her script back, but before she could, Amazon Studios called to say her show was dead, and she was like tweeting out repeatedly at the time. Now, she directed these tweets at Amazon founder and CEO Jeff Bezos, and he didn't respond. Now, it's not clear what script Rose was referring to, but in September of 2016, she did tell an audience at a film festival in Brooklyn that she sold her show to Amazon, that she wrote and would direct. She didn't reveal the subject matter, but she previously talked about her desire to make a show about her early experiences in living in a cult. Her family fled from one in 1980, and I for one would like to see that. In 2013, Corey Feldman went on The View to talk about how the Predator numbers are larger than anybody knows and include a ring reaching up into the Hollywood elite that's been shielded for years by the establishment. Barbara Walters Reporters looked at him with disbelief, hands clasped across her stomach, and snarled, "You're damaging an entire industry," as if to say that Hollywood itself was more valuable than wrecking lives. In a lengthy statement posted to Twitter, Charisma Carpenter detailed how Joss Whedon allegedly mistreated her during her time on both of his hit shows that she worked on, Buffy and Angel. Carpenter wrote that after nearly 2 decades of staying quiet and making excuses for traumatizing events, she finally had the courage to call out Joss Whedon for using his power in a bad way on numerous occasions. Following Charisma's allegations, which included claims that Whedon continuously made passive-aggressive threats to fire her, called her fat when she was 4 months pregnant, pitted cast members against one another, and unceremoniously fired her after accusing her of sabotaging the show, several of her Buffy and Angel castmates shared their thoughts on the situation and messages of support. Sarah Michelle Gellar, who played Buffy on Buffy, said that while I am proud to have my name associated with Buffy Summers, I don't want to be forever associated with the name Joss Whedon. I stand with all survivors and am proud of them for speaking out. James Marsters, who played Spike, mentioned that while he will always be honored to have played the character, the Buffy set was not without challenges. He does not support harm of any kind, and he was heartbroken to learn of the experiences of some of the cast. He sent his love and support to everybody. So there was a lot of suspicions about the casting couch as a term used to characterize stars who are handed roles in exchange for favors long before the Harvey story broke. Megan Fox was one who spoke out. She spoke with GQ and laid out the cold hard facts, putting the rumors to rest. The actress stated that she would be honored to meet Hollywood legends and that she would be overjoyed by prospects, and then when she arrived, she would find out that meetings would be just a ruse. Many males in the profession were able to get away with sleeping with a lot of women, but she wasn't one of them. She was like, absolutely not, and that didn't help her career. Film critics and historians mentioned like, hey, does this ring a bell? Because over the years in Hollywood, the risks for a lot of folks were kind of high if you didn't follow the leader, fall in line. Vanessa Marquez had a recurring role on the hospital drama ER during the 90s, playing nurse Wendy Goldman, and alleged that George Clooney helped blacklist her after she spoke up about the harassment that was occurring on the set of the hit show. Now, Clooney has since denied the allegations, saying he had nothing to do with casting, he was an actor and only an actor. If she was told he was involved in any decision about her career, then she was lied to. The fact that he couldn't affect her career is only surpassed by the fact that he wouldn't have. Now, following her stint on ER, Vanessa hasn't really had a lot of work, sadly. Tara Subkoff was an up-and-coming actress in the 90s. She had roles in movies like As Good as It Gets, All Over Me, The Last Days of Disco. She was up for a part in one of Harvey's movies when he offered her the role at a premiere after a party, and then he hit on her. Well, according to her, after she rejected his advances, she found herself on the Hollywood block list. She was the subject of false gossip, labeled difficult to work with, and by that I mean like too difficult to work with. She said it became impossible for her to get work as an actress after that, so then she had to start a new career path, and yeah, poor thing. Harvey, once again, had Mira Sorvino's career derailed after she rejected his advances. She mentioned to Ronan Farrow that she had rejected him on several occasions and had even reported his harassment to a female employee at Miramax, and had then noticed that her career was starting to suffer. She mentioned like there may have been other factors, but she definitely felt iced out and that her rejection of Harvey had something to do with it. In December of 2017, director Peter Jackson came forward and admitted that Harvey had badmouthed Sorvino to him, telling him that she was a nightmare to work with and he should avoid her at all costs. Seeing a pattern here today. Tippi Hedren was Alfred Hitchcock's most iconic leading lady. Under his direction, she went from being a model to a respected actress. Unfortunately, he wanted a little more than to just direct her on screen. He was reportedly quite obsessed with her and made a number of unwanted advances, which she rejected. She said, "He stared at me and simply said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, that from this time on, he expected me to make myself available in that nature and accessible to him, however and whenever and wherever he wanted." Now, when Tippi tried to get out of her contract with Hitchcock, he threatened to ruin her career, and then he followed through with his threat. Because he had her under contract, he was able to keep her on the payroll without actually employing her. He made sure to turn down any film offers that came in from other studios. Now, looking back at it, she actually has a pretty good attitude with the situation. She mentioned that he ruined her career, but he didn't ruin her life. That time of her life was over. She still admires him for his work, but not as a person. After Clint Eastwood dumped Sandra Locke back in 1989, she found herself blacklisted by all of Hollywood's major studios, and this lasted for like a decade. Before the breakup, she had quite the career. She had an Oscar nomination under her belt, she had starred in 6 films of his, she was a budding director, but her breakup with the legendary director was very messy. She arrived home one day to find that he had changed the locks on their shared home and had put her stuff in storage. In response, she filed a palimony suit against him. In 1990, they were able to reach an agreement. Eastwood actually set up a development/directing pact for her at Warner Brothers in exchange for her dropping the suit. But 5 years later, they're back in court. She alleged that he had compensated Warner Brothers to keep her out of work because they had rejected all of the 30 projects that she had proposed and didn't give her any of their in-house projects. When he realized the jury was going to side with Locke, he settled with her for an undisclosed amount. But her career was not magically resurrected. However, it did send out a message in Hollywood that powerful people can and will take advantage of their power, but in this case, we win. Being wrongfully touched is a problem for a lot of folks in Hollywood, be it man, woman, no matter what your gender is. A sad example of this is Brendan Fraser, who claimed in 2018 that at a public event, he went to shake the hand of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association president, or HFPA, Philip Burke, but instead Burke grabbed Fraser's behind. Now, Burke has described this account as a total fabrication, but then, in his 2014 memoir, he admitted to having groped him in jest. Sadly, when you combine this harm, Brendan's divorce at the time, and the death of his mother, it kind of launched him sadly into a depression that, combined with his health problems, led to a break in his career. He had completely turned away from the spotlight, but then he bravely and publicly shamed Burke for the indecency. Sadly, for quite a while after that, Brendan's work phone stopped ringing. But now he's back, and we'd love to see it.
On February 26, 2024, music producer Rodney Jones filed a lawsuit against Diddy, and on March 25th, Homeland Security investigations served search warrants in the early morning raids on Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami. Diddy was then arrested this week after being accused of criminal activity from at least 2008. Now, he has pleaded not guilty to all charges. His lawyers proposed a bail package that included a $50 million bond, co-signed by Diddy, his mother, and other family members, as well as home detention, surrender of his passport, and a visitor log that would be submitted to pretrial services each night. But the judge denied this, which honestly was the right choice. It seems like a lot of different people were involved in this case. On the other hand, Diddy's lawyer has said that he's not afraid of the charges, and he also added that he thought Diddy was a target of an unjust prosecution, and the case of Diddy is still ongoing, and it will be very interesting to see what comes out of it. Then it was revealed this year that Hollywood couple Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds aren't as nice as they appear to be. Blake's movie It Ends With Us was released, and it came with a lot of drama. Now, Blake produced and starred in the film, while it was directed and co-starred by Justin Baldoni. Things started going downhill during the press release of the film, as people noticed that the cast seemed really disconnected from each other. Then, Blake was called out for promoting the film in a lighthearted way when it covers serious topics. Now, she also used the film to promote some of her brands, which just weren't appropriate. It was then revealed that her husband Ryan helped out on the film and even rewrote one of the scenes. Not to mention, Blake also made her own edit of the film. Then, a couple weeks ago, it was revealed that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's entire relationship is fake, and that they were planning to break up at the end of September. Paperwork was leaked that was created by Los Angeles-based firm Full Scope, which revealed a strategy on what to do when the pair broke up, and said the date for an announcement was September 28th. Now, it also outlined a supposed plan to release an official statement at the end of this month, 3 days post-breakup, to allow the initial media frenzy to settle and ensure clarity. It added that the announcement would be gracious, respectful, and stress mutual respect. But a spokesman for Full Scope insisted that they were entirely false and fabricated, and were not created, issued, or authorized by this agency. Now, last year, actor Matthew Perry was found dead in a hot tub at his Los Angeles home, and now new details have been released surrounding his death. He had been treating depression with prescribed medication, and no foul play was expected, but now 5 people have been arrested in the case of his death. Now, Matthew's live-in assistant, Kenneth Amasa, was the person who found the actor dead. Investigators say that he was also the one who injected Matthew with the medication that led to his death. Now, Kenneth never received medical training and knew little, if anything, about the medications. Authorities say Matthew purchased 20 vials of medication for a total of $55,000 between September and October 2023. His death could have been prevented, and overall, it's just such a sad story and outcome, but at least those responsible will be facing justice. Now, Alec Baldwin was indicted by a New Mexico grand jury and recharged in connection with the fatal 2021 Rust incident. Now, the first criminal charges brought against Alec were dropped in April 2023, but according to New Mexico law, he could have faced up to 18 months in prison with the new charges. In January, a source close to the family spoke to People about how Alec and his wife were handling the indictment. The insider shared that the pair found the news frustrating and very stressful. They knew there was a possibility there would be a new indictment, the source told People. The back and forth is hard. Then there was an announcement that the pair were getting their own reality show to show their everyday lives with their children. Now, this announcement shocked a lot of people, thinking that they agreed to the show to fix his image and bankroll his legal fees. In the end, though, the case was dropped once again, and Alec hasn't faced any more consequences. Then, this week it was revealed that Miley Cyrus is getting sued over a song she allegedly copied from Bruno Mars. Tempo Music Investments, a company claiming it owns share of the copyright for Bruno's song When I Was Your Man, is claiming that Miley's song Flowers is a copy. In the lawsuit, it said it is undeniable based on the combination and number of similarities between the two recordings that Flowers would not exist without When I Was Your Man. Accordingly, plaintiff brings this action for copyright infringement arising out of defendants' unauthorized reproduction, distribution, and exploitation of When I Was Your Man, the complaint adds. Now, the company wants Miley and other defendants to stop reproducing, distributing, or publicly performing Flowers. The company is also seeking damages, but they have not released an amount yet. Now, Demi Lovato recently released a documentary recalling everything they went through while being a child star. I wouldn't end up where I am had I not made all the choices leading up to this point, but it came at a price, Demi explained during the doc. There's definitely not a manual on how to navigate this industry at such a young age. Now, the documentary featured other young stars like Drew Barrymore. Now, in the doc, the actors talk about bullying, how they were mistreated, and how they self-medicated to get through the pain they went through. Now, these stars hit a lot of things that were going on in their lives. It was a real eye-opener for a lot of people, and with these stars being honest, Demi is hoping that stricter laws can be made and followed when it comes to young people in the entertainment industry. Now, one of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt's daughters filed paperwork to legally remove Pitt from her name the day she turned 18. Shiloh Nouvelle Jolie Pitt submitted a petition in Los Angeles County Superior Court on May 27th to change her name to Shiloh Nouvelle Jolie, the Los Angeles Times reported. She was granted this change, but she's not the only family member who did this, as in the playbill for the new musical The Outsiders, which their daughter Vivian helped Angelina produce, the teenager is listed as Vivian Jolie instead of Vivian Jolie Pitt. Then there was a time their son Pax made a Father's Day post to Brad, and it was leaked years later. The post said, "Happy Father's Day to this world-class a-hole. You time and time again prove yourself to be a terrible, despicable person. You've made the lives of those closest to me a constant hell. You may tell yourself and the world whatever you want, but the truth will come to light someday. So happy Father's Day, you effing awful human being." Recently, it's been said that Meghan Markle has reportedly been labeled Duchess difficult by US staffers. Josh Kettler, who was the top aide for the Duke and Duchess, quit his job in August after only 3 months, joining the increasing number of people who are leaving them. An insider aware of the situation told The Hollywood Reporter, "Everyone's terrified of Meghan, she belittles people, ignores advice, and both she and Harry frequently change their minds, leading to poor decision making." But the email in question, where she was demanding and rude, was honestly super normal. She woke up early and emailed one of her staffers, hoping to have a meeting with them. She was nice, and the whole situation was blown out of proportion. Now, it appears that there's a bunch of people out there who are trying to make her look bad for no reason. And finally, back in June, Justin Timberlake got arrested for driving under the influence. Sources connected to law enforcement said Justin was at the American Hotel partying, and almost immediately after he left and began driving, he blew a stop sign. Cops saw that and began to follow him, and it's then been said Justin began swerving, so the cops pulled him over. TMZ sources said cops performed a field sobriety test and asked Justin to take a breathalyzer test, but he refused. In the end, Justin was handcuffed and arrested, and the whole incident was recorded on a police officer's body cam. He was then charged with 1 count of DWI and cited for running a stop sign and failure to keep in his lane. Now, last week he pleaded guilty to a reduced charge in his drunk driving case and was ordered to pay a $500 fine and perform community service. He has to do 25 to 40 hours of community service at a nonprofit, and he was ordered to make a public safety announcement. Yeah, that isn't a good look, and now people are accusing him of getting off easy because he's a celebrity.
At one point, Justin Timberlake would have been considered one of the greatest pop music artists of all time. This guy has appeared in movies, TV shows, and of course he's sold out arenas around the world, both with NSYNC and since. But thanks to Britney's memoir, The Woman in Me, it's been revealed that Justin got Britney pregnant when they were together and convinced her to not have the baby to save their careers. Not long after, they split for good. The decision is something that Britney says that she's regretted for a long time. In the memoir, she writes so many things about Justin, exposing every little secret that he once held close. The world now knows that Britney almost had a baby with him, but that he encouraged her not to have it, something that she went through with and regrets to this day. Now, I've not personally read Britney's memoir yet, however, it is on my wish list, so we shall see how much terrible information there really is on this man inside its pages. One thing that was revealed that is now public knowledge is just how much shame Britney felt when Justin released the song Cry Me a River, directly throwing shade and blame at Britney Spears. Too bad for Britney, it's a catchy song. So many people around the world listen to Cry Me a River, a song where Justin was claiming Britney had cheated on him. Well, in her book, she reveals the opposite happened, and he actually cheated on her. The entire argument can only be solved when you choose a side, and I personally don't care about either of these people one way or another, so you can be the judge of that one. Since the news broke and his name has been dragged through all of the mud, he's actually been forced to turn off his social media notifications thanks to the flurry of negativity that he's receiving. To be fair to the world, he does not come out looking great in this book. On top of the whole baby situation, Britney reveals that Justin was not the best boy in town. Over the years, this guy has been spotted being a menace in public, and we have forgiven him time and time again. If there is one man on this planet who has put his foot in his own mouth time and time again, it's Justin Timberlake. Now, before the year 2010, this man had appeared on so many stages in so many different forums that there is at least one little Justin slip-up recorded at all of them. For instance, when Justin was introducing Madonna at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he made a comment that the world was full of people trying to imitate Madonna and that he may have been dating one at one point. This was in direct reference to Britney and made him look like a jerk. He also likes to interrupt people in interviews and bombard them with criticism, but we've talked about that in another video. This man has been making his name known around the world for a long time, not just during his time with NSYNC, but after as well. There are a ton of on-stage instances with Justin and other celebrities, as well as off. This man was in the middle of a podcast in the early 2000s, and he literally told the host that he did, in fact, F Britney Spears, although he didn't say F. In doing research for this video, I found over 20 examples of this guy making a fool of himself in public. He pretended to be Prince at the Golden Globes one year by crouching down to 5'2" and doing a busted impression of him. He has a penchant for imitation though, as he also did that to Rihanna's mother as he accepted his American Music Award for the Best Male Soul and R&B Singer. He doesn't research the names of things before he uses them, like when he released a song called Take Back the Night, which is also the name of an anti-mistreatment organization. Oh, and he literally paid someone to pretend to be Britney Spears and crash a car on camera for his music video to What Goes Around Comes Around. This guy is a menace. On top of turning off his Instagram notifications, he's actually been forced to postpone his tour. He was slated to appear at various clubs across the US early next year, but due to the slew of hate this man is getting, there is no chance of that happening anytime soon. The tour was supposed to be promotional. Justin is working on a new album, and this was going to be its big moment, its big release. Well, despite the cancellation, Justin's former bandmates, including Lance Bass, have publicly expressed their support for Justin. Justin's friend and former NSYNC bandmate Lance Bass has made his opinions known, and it might shock. He posted online to say that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. It just feels like the world is so full of hate at the moment that we need to practice a little forgiveness. Britney did, so let's take a note from her. I know, it's so juicy, right? Lance wanted people to be civil and friendly. Whew, that's a lot to ask. He continued to say that everyone deserves to have their story shared. She did, and he hopes that fans can, again, find some forgiveness. Lance and Justin recently reconnected along with their fellow NSYNC crew to record a new song together for the first time in 20 years. Fortunately, it seems like this will be the only time these guys get back together anytime soon. The backlash coming Justin's way is next level. According to sources, Justin actually had no idea that he would be featured so prominently in the book. Of course, he was under the impression that she would expose some secrets for purposes of plot, right? But not air out every single piece of dirty laundry that there was to offer. According to a source, Justin is actually very disappointed about the whole situation. He feels disappointed that she felt the need to write so much about him specifically. He also has a lot of regret in his soul, knowing that he hurt Britney when she was so young. Britney has every right to tell her side of the story so that herself and everyone involved can begin to heal and move on, according to Justin's wife, Jessica Biel. Justin's current wife is no stranger to her husband being a pain in the neck. One night a few years back, Justin was spotted holding hands with Palmer co-star Alicia Wainwright while he was still very much married to Jessica. Of course, the internet, being what it is, saw this man holding another woman's hand and automatically assumed that he must be cheating on her. Hey, and I'm sorry, but that's very stupid, and if you saw that picture back in the day and assumed that that was what's happening, I guess what you are. Justin was forced to release a public statement clarifying that he in fact had not done anything bad and that his co-star was just his friend. He had a bit too much no-no juice and he was not paying attention to how he was acting. He claims that he grew really close to his co-star, but in more of like a brother-sister kind of way. Jessica forgave him, but he continued to showcase a pattern of careless actions. He's used offensive language and accents during interviews and even while on stage performing his music. Because Justin associates himself with rap a lot, he seems to think that he's good to use slang words and speak with an accent that just doesn't really sound right coming out of him. Jessica and Justin actually posted a photo together on Instagram with the caption, "Here we come!" exclamation point, and dang, my wife is hot. Hashtag time's up. Hashtag why we wear black. Now, for those of you who may have forgotten, hashtag time's up and the fact that people were wearing black back in the day at the Grammys was to stand in solidarity with the survivors of mistreatment. Not a great look. Justin really should not be so upset about the revelations in this memoir though. Compared to, I don't know, Britney's parents, this man seems like an angel. One thing that comes up a lot in Britney's memoir is her relationship to her parents. She discusses the strain that's been placed especially on the bond between herself and her mother Lynn. She dives deep into her childhood and what really went down. In the book, she said that she started drinking no-no juice with her mother when she was in the 8th grade. Now, of course, that's awful, and no one should ever do that, because Britney wouldn't just have a sip now and again. No, she would drink no-no juice like it was her job. She explained that for fun, she started having fruity no-no juice with her mom while they were in Biloxi, Mississippi, and to make things feel a little less illegal, they would call the drinks toddies, named after the adult beverage that's basically just no-no tea. Britney felt a special bond with her mother because of this, especially considering the contrast between her mom and her dad, Jamie. When her mother had a few, she was bubbly and happy, and same with Britney, but when Jamie had a few, he would get angry and depressed. The behavior is terrible, and while bonding with your parents is awesome, that's just not the right way to do it. Britney's father, Jamie, has had a complex relationship with his daughter for most of her life. In her memoir, she shared the harsh judgment that she constantly received from her dad. She explained that she thought getting criticized for her body in the press was bad, but it hurt even more when it was coming from her own father. He repeatedly told her that she looked heavy and that she really needed to do something about it. She explained that even as a small child, he never gave her the love or attention that she really needed. In the book, she said that feeling like you are never good enough is a soul-crushing state for a young child. He drummed that message into her growing up, and even after she accomplished so much, he was continuing to make her feel like dirt. Jamie's wild opinions about Britney got so much worse when she was under her conservatorship. Under the conservatorship, Jamie was named as one of the several people in her life that can make important decisions for her. Mind, body, soul, all that jazz. She was forced to grow her recently shaved hair back and get back into shape. For 13 years, that guy remained in control of her life right up until the suspension in 2021. Now, as many of you may know, Britney was placed under a psychiatric hold in 2008 following what we will call a difficult day, and was later placed under a conservatorship by Jamie. In the book, she explains that she had been going through a lot of stuff at the time. She said that shaving her head and acting out were just ways of pushing back. Under the conservatorship, she was made to understand that those days were now over. She had to grow her hair back, get into shape, take medication, she went to bed early, and just did basically whatever anyone said to her. Britney revealed that she felt like a little tiny infant under the conservatorship and lost her passion for music, explaining that she started to feel more like a thing on stage rather than a person. In her book, she said that she has always felt music in her bones, but her family stole that from her. She reminded readers of the contrast between male and female artists, telling them to think of all of the male artists who gamble their money away, who have substance control issues, mental health problems, all that, but many have never had their control of their body and money taken away. Before the book was released, people were just under the impression that the conservatorship was some kind of a financial thing, but as her book is revealed, it is a lot darker than that. Number 10. Contestants are prisoners. Most reality shows force their contestants to share a living space for the duration of their stay. On air, it seemed like everyone on Love is Blind was granted access to this cozy little private room all to themselves. Well, that's not the case. In the past few years, contestants have actually shared their horror stories surrounding their living arrangements. Instead of a private room, all 15 men and women are meant to share separate trailers, with men in one and women in the other. They essentially lived in tightly stacked bunk beds. Now, it's one thing to jam people into like a tiny trailer and call it a gift, but the producers decided it would be a great idea to make their blind lovers stay in their pods for up to 20 hours a day. Not only did they not have enough time in the day to actually sleep, they literally couldn't if they wanted to. The situation was so bad that whenever a couple weren't really hitting it off, they would mutually agree to nap for the rest of their time together. Somewhere out there, there is just thousands of hours of footage of people just being like, hey, are you bored? Cool, I'm gonna just... That sounds like the most devastating way to be rejected on the planet. There are a ton of other reasons that the set was considered to be toxic, but we'll get into those in a sec. Number 9. 50 grand fine. Reality shows are an interesting medium. For a long time, I honestly just assumed that anyone who was on these shows wasn't getting paid, that their payment was just, wearing nice clothes, living at a resort, and performing coitus for 6 weeks straight. But it turns out you do get a little paycheck for participating in a reality show. And I do mean little. For the folks at Love is Blind, they'd be given up to 8 grand over an 8-week period, which sounds kinda good. $1 grand a week is not that bad, but that payment was something like $17.50 an hour because of the, 20-hour work days, both during and after the pod segments. If the cast members decided that they wanted to leave the show early for any number of reasons, then thanks to the contract that they signed, they would immediately be fined $50,000. Not only were they being underpaid and overworked, but their only option out of the situation would be one hefty fine. Honestly, considering some of the other entries that I'm going to talk about on this list, I'd gladly take a 50 grand L if it meant that I could go home. Number 8. Scouting process. For reality TV shows, there has always been a bit of confusion on how they get the people, right? What's the casting process? Where do they find all these unique and interesting individuals for our viewing pleasure? Well, for Love is Blind, they did it the old-fashioned way. Swiping on Tinder and Instagram looking for lonely singles ready to mingle. Now, I wish I was making this up, but in doing research for this video, I found out that this is actually a real process that takes place behind the scenes. Someone is paid to scroll online and DM people to get them onto the show. Several contestants claimed that the first messages that they ever received were on Instagram from random accounts linked to producers. Because that's not sketchy at all. Someone wants me to be on Netflix, sign me up. Oh, I just have to send them $1,000 first. Awesome! I'm sorry, that is just the sketchiest way to get hired for a job on the planet. Now, I'm sure there are sketchier things, but I have yet to experience them. Number 7, Mark. Now, who could forget this poor man from the very first season of this show? Mark and Jessica were the couple from reality TV heaven. On screen, they were a chaotic pairing, with Jessica flip-flopping her feelings for Mark over and over again. She would love him, she'd have some no-no juice, then she'd hate him, rinse and repeat. However, behind the scenes, it turned out that Jessica's outbursts may have been warranted. It was revealed after the show aired that Mark was actually seeing someone else while he was on the show, and he actually mentioned it to Jessica. She was, of course, not happy to learn that the man that she was somewhat interested in was already seeing someone else back home, which is probably what caused her to break up and get back together with him like 6 times in one season. I don't know if that's accurate, but it really felt like it is. At the end of the season, she decided to leave Mark at the altar, and he was barely fazed by it. Now we know why. At one point, Mark actually wanted to opt out of his contract, but he was actually pressured to stay in by the producers because they were getting such good content out of this guy. Number 6, the pods. The first portion of this show is dedicated to the contestants spending time in pods, space that is designed to allow all love to bloom without the need of any visual stimulus. The pod segments take up a good portion of the show, but for the contestants, they would spend spend 20 hours a day in their pods, going from room to room and getting to know each other. Now 20 hours a day were dedicated to you staring at a wall and talking to someone that you couldn't see, and I'm pretty sure that's the definition of insanity. Okay, the actual definition of insanity is the state of being seriously mentally ill, but you get my point, okay? When you realize they were being paid $7 an hour to do it, this just feels like cruel and unusual punishment. They'd nap in their pods because the sleeping conditions were so bad, but the pods took up so much time that even if they did want to sleep, they wouldn't have any time to pass out and wake up. It wouldn't work. Number 5, no therapy. The premise of this show, for those of you who don't know, which how did you get this far in the list if you haven't, is potential couples meet in pods with large walls dividing them. Now they can hear each other, but they can't see. The idea is for people to find love with individuals before getting the chance to actually base their love on physical features. When they meet in person, they get some time together before they have to decide if they want to get married or if they want to end things right then and there. Now it's kind of a nice premise, and surprisingly there have been a handful of successful marriages that come out of the show. Amber and Barnett for the win. However, there is a certain mental toll that shows like this just take on you. One former contestant, Nick from season 2, made a list of all of the things to keep in mind when you were watching Love is Blind and posted it on Instagram. One of the first things that he listed out entry by entry was the pressure cooker of the decisions that must be made before you actually get married. Despite the decision making and life changes that the show was responsible for, they apparently provided little to no therapeutic support at all. Nick claimed that he made 3 phone calls to the so-called mental health experts that were designated by the producers, but the conversations were short and usually ended with him being told that it would be taken care of. But of course it never was. For a show centered around emotional connections, the people in charge consider that to be the last thing on their minds. Number 4, be dramatic. It's no secret that some reality shows are actually scripted or self-indulgent. On shows like The Bachelor, they ask contestants to play up the drama, and occasionally someone will literally egg a person into doing something wild. For Love is Blind, they ramp the requests up to 1 million. If you are upset or angry with anyone, just do it! Go yell at them! Find the person who hurt you and just let it out. A ton of the show is edited to make situations look worse than they actually were. I know, it's shocking, eh? Mark and Jessica, for instance, were actually pretty good at communication, but the show was edited to make it look like she had a bit too much no-no juice and flip-flopped on her feelings for Mark. Now, on top of the out-of-context editing, many cast members explained that speaking to production was basically pointless. Sorry, I spit a lot just then. Many cast members explained that speaking to production was basically pointless. If you brought an issue up with them, they would just say okay and then move on. At one point, people were literally told to stop speaking to production staff altogether. And in season 2, one contestant, Danielle, got incredibly sick and was made to isolate for a few days. And at one point, she had a panic attack. The moment was edited to make it look like she was jealous of Nick, her potential partner, for speaking to another woman. Number 3, yes, have some. Throughout production of Love is Blind, there is one perk to staying with a ton of people in one trailer and having your escapades recorded for the world to see. That perk is having food and beverage catered 24/7. The contestants were given the chance to take from a large table of various goodies all the time. Pretzels, little sodas, and of course, lots and lots of no-no juice. The no-no juice budget on this show must be insane, and part of the reason why we see so many contestants get tipsy and wild. This would also explain why in season 1, Jessica always seemed to have her adult grape juice on tap, literally holding a fresh glass in every other clip. I know I'm talking about them a lot, man, that just sticks in your head after you see that. The production team has been rumored to be fairly manipulative as time has gone on, and it would be no surprise to learn that they encourage their cast to indulge a little for the cameras. Number 2, after the altar. Following the end of most reality shows, there tends to be a little reunion special. Everyone gets brought back together to go over clips, rehash old arguments, and sometimes they get to squash them too. For Love is Blind, After the Altar brings everyone together, from the people who did get engaged to those whose engagements ended in disaster. This is just another way for the show's producers to squeeze as much drama out of these people as they can. Several couples are still together from the first 4 seasons of the show. There are also a ton of horror stories in between A and B. This isn't really a secret, I just thought it'd be fun to mention that this part of the show is kinda messed up. Just a little bit. And at number 1, exploitation. Taking the top spot on our list is of course the more serious and dark secret of all. As mentioned earlier in this list, the footage taken throughout production is usually edited and taken out of context just to make the show look more interesting. Well, that might be a good idea at first, but let that sink in for a second. Someone's job is to take hours and hours of footage of people having genuine breakdowns, anxiety, stress, all that fun stuff, and edit it to fit their format. Some people have never even thought of arguing with each other, but that's what they make it look like, so that's what we're gonna believe.